You're watching Unpackaged Goods. I'm your host, Jonathan Dieter. We're back. All right. It's August 11th. It's Tuesday. Beautiful day. No, it's hot. It was nice this morning in Prospect Park, though. But yeah, we're back in a routine. I think we're starting to get the hang of it and what we want the podcast to be. So we have another interview coming up with the founder of Roxy Super Cubes. They are infused ice cubes. I've actually been using them the last couple of nights because I've been biking a lot. And so finding ways to get my magnesium and my L-theanine, and then they have like a immunity one. So yeah, that interview is coming up here at the end. As always, a couple of housekeeping items here at the top. If you haven't yet subscribed to our newsletter, head on over to Substack. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, if you could pause here, rate and review us 5 stars, that would be incredible. It really helps us get in front of other listeners. And if you haven't followed us on socials, Deets Eats NYC, you can follow us on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you get your social media. Alrighty, without further ado, let's dive in. Started talking with my hands and then the camera went everywhere. So we're going to rip through the newsletter. If you read my newsletter, this is all going to be familiar news for you. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about some of the headlines. Alrighty, so the biggest headline of the week, P&G agreed to buy Thorne for $3.8 billion. So Catterton has been on fire. That's a lot of money for a supplement brand. Here's the context that makes that number matter. Catterton took Thorne private for $680 million in 2023. So in under 3 years, the headline value on the business went up more than $3 billion. That's crazy. So Thorne did over $500 million in sales in 2025. They should hit around $650 million this year. They've been compounding about 30% annually since going private. Most of their customers are under 40. I'm one of them. I take 2 of their supplements. I'd have to go look at them. Their direct-to-consumer business keeps climbing, and P&G reportedly beat Haleon in a bidding process to get it. So here's the details I can't stop thinking about. Thorne's creatine business reportedly accounts for 25 to 30% of total revenue. Sit with that. A Fortune 500 company just agreed to pay $3.8 billion for a supplement brand, and roughly a quarter of the brand's revenue comes from creatine. 2 years ago, creatine was still marketed as a powder sold to gym bros. It was a bodybuilding supplement. Now it's a mainstream wellness ingredient. I took my creatine this morning, with importantly a fast-growing female customer base. And in the same week that the deal was announced, Needed launched a women's creatine line, 5 grams per serving, and I don't think that's a coincidence. That's the category telling you where the customer went. So, and this deal doesn't happen in isolation. This is P&G's second health acquisition this year after Wonderberry in January. Bain bought Vitabiotics for $1.2 billion. Keurig agreed this week to buy Jameson Wellness for $2.5 billion Canadian. Unilever bought Grüns. Lactalis bought Protein Works. And Nestle's reviewing its own health and wellness portfolio as we speak. That's 6 major supplement deals in like 6 weeks. So if you're running a supplement brand with real distribution and science you can actually defend, there's a decent chance you're already sitting in someone's acquisition model. You may just not know it yet. Alrighty, segment 2. Celsius Holdings reported Q2 revenue of $880 million. Company record. 10% growth, but the stock dropped more than 17%. Why is that? The breakdown explains it. Alani Nu contributed $364 million. The core Celsius brand fell 11.7%. The core Celsius brand fell 11.7%, which I think makes sense. You have these energy incumbents that are coming into the market that people are more attracted to, whether it be clean ingredients, branding, lifestyle that it portrays. I think that's the big thing. I think Celsius had this huge, massive influencer push 5-6 years ago, and I think people now have kind of outgrown it, but Celsius has their loyal fans. People who drink Celsius, they swear by it. So Celsius bought Alani Nu for $1.8 billion in early 25. The deal now looks less like an opportunity they seized and more like something they needed, because it's the reason the consolidated business grew at all. Strip out the acquisition, and the flagship is shrinking inside a category that's still expanding. I want to be fair here. Celsius did the conventional thing correctly. They identified a fast-growing brand, they paid a full price for it, they integrated it well, and Alani Nu is performing. The problem is that Alani Nu is now load-bearing, and a business with one load-bearing asset has no margin for that asset to have an off quarter. Now compare that to Monster, which reported the same week. Monster's net sales rose 22% to $2.5 billion. First time they've crossed $2.5 billion in a quarter. International was up 34%, and the core Monster Energy segment grew 21.6%. The flagship is the engine. That's the difference between a portfolio that compounds and a portfolio that gets carried. Same category, same week, opposite structure. Segment 3, 80-acre farms shutters. So one of my friends was very disappointed about this. She commented on my Substack, even emailed me about it. She meant to comment, but so different kind of story and an important one because 80-acre farms is winding down, and this is one of the heavyweights in indoor agriculture. They raised more than $350 million. They supplied over 18,000 retail locations, and they're done. Why? Here's how I read it. This wasn't a demand problem wearing a startup costume. It was an economics problem wearing a technology costume. Controlled environment agriculture promises real things: consistent local supply, fewer food miles, less water, immunity from weather, and every single one of these claims can be true, while the cost structure still fails because energy, labor, facilities don't care how good your pitch deck is. The company had capital, it had retail distribution, it had scale. What it never got was utilization strong enough to carry the fixed costs. Now, I covered Hippo Harvest a couple weeks ago. They raised $30 million to expand their robotics greenhouse from 1 acre to 30, and Cox Farms led the round, which is the largest greenhouse operator in North America. I'm not calling the outcome on that one. Different model, different cost structure, strategic investor at the table, but the vertical farming thesis just got its most expensive stress test, and the results are public. If you're building anything capital intensive, calling the infrastructure your moat, understand that infrastructure only becomes a moat after utilization works. Before that, it's just a fixed cost with better branding. Segment 4, we're just flying today. This is good. Kraft Heinz writes down $7.4 billion. This was a big headline that I don't think people really understand because accounting jargon can really just muddy the whole thing. So what it means, Kraft Heinz reported a $6.4 billion operating loss after recording $7.4 billion in non-cash impairments. A lot of big buzzwords. So in the same release, they raised their 2026 outlook, organic sales outlook, though I want to be precise about that because the revised guideline still projects a full year decline of 0.5 to 2%. They raised it from bad to less bad. So read those two things together and you get an honest picture. New CEO, Steve Calhoun, he sees better near-term trading and he's putting $700 million into marketing and innovation, up from $600 million he originally committed to. At the same time, the company is acknowledging that major brands are worth far less than what it had been carrying them for on their books. And last year's charge was $9.3 billion. This is the balance sheet version of the Celsius story. A headline can improve while the underlying portfolio weakens, and accounting can delay the reckoning for a while. Neither one of those manufacturers demand. I don't think legacy food is dead, but an awareness without relevance is an expensive asset to maintain. And Callahan singled out Oscar Mayer and Kraft Mac and Cheese as the two lines that need work. Those are enormous brands. Almost everyone listening to this knows them. Knowing them and buying them are different things. Segment 5, on the deals and the funding. So let's dive in. Rapid fire on the rest of this stuff. So Axum Capital Partners took a controlling stake in Barcode. It's the drink backed by Wemby, Victor Wembanyama, the French NBA superstar. He's going to stay on as a stakeholder and a strategic partner because he's basically the face of basketball. And Barcode launched, so Barcode, little history on them. We'll back up a little bit. They launched in 2021 as an RTD sports drink. And RTD sports drinks remain one of the hardest categories in beverage because Gatorade and Powerade own the shelf and the price points. Axum's bet is that professional operators plus a famous name convert better than a famous name alone. Worth watching because a lot of athlete brands are watching too. They're like, is this going to work? Sargento agreed to buy La Terra Fina. Moving past natural trees into daily case for the first time since 1953. Clean adjacency. They already know refrigerated dairy, cold chain, and retail buyers. They just didn't know the deli section yet. Farmer's Dog acquired Woof after serving more than 1 billion meals, adding enrichment to a business built on nutrition. And Bain Capital agreed to acquire Gongcha, the 2200 bubble tea chain. Bubble tea can look fragmented from the sidewalk. At 2,200 stores across 29 countries, it's institutional. On the funding side, Noon raised $2.5 million from BFG Partners, River Park, Habitat Fund to launch in nearly 2,000 Target stores. Founded in 2025, raising in 2026 to stock a national placement. The round isn't paying for discovery, it's paying for inventory against shelf space they already won, which is a much easier check to write. Proxy Foods AI, they raised $6 million for AI native product development. And finally, Newtonic finally closed their 7-figure seed round, led by Red Rice after growing 300%. Boba Pops raised $2.2 million from 460 community investors. That was a unique one. And Uncle Ernie's added $2 million, extending its Series A. Creme, the French skincare brand, took its first outside equity from Iris Ventures after doubling revenue every year since 2020. And almost nobody in American beauty thinks about the pharmacy channel. And here they are just dominating it. All right, so segment 6, some launches and some data to highlight before we wrap things up. Elf and Bubble did a limited time collab. Premier Protein launched a sparkling protein soda. Jumex went into protein shakes along with 29 Walmart stores. TrueBar launched a pro line at 18 grams of protein and 12 to 13 grams of fiber. 7 Sundays moved into pancakes. And Needed launched a women's creatine. Protein has stopped behaving like a category and started behaving like a required claim. It's in beverages, breakfast, snacks, and now the pantry. Chef Esther Choi launched Sessi, a Korean-American pantry brand with sesame oil, soy sauce, gochujang, made with Sempio, one of the oldest food companies in Korea. Truff did a smoky pineapple hot sauce at Whole Foods, and Fix and Fog launched banana caramel peanut butter and nailed the label. So Kellogg will pull artificial colors and BHT from the rest of the cereal portfolio by the end of 2026. That's big news. Nearly a year ahead of schedule. Reformulating a full portfolio is slow and expensive, so finishing up early tells you something. My read is they see regulatory and consumer pressure increasing rather than easing. So they'd rather absorb the cost on their own timeline rather than someone else's. One more thing from the data, Lotus Bakeries plans to invest 500 million euros in Biscoff capacity around the continents. Grillo's started a production at $54 million plant in Indiana. That's a 5th capacity. All right, that's it. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. It means the world to me. Now, our interview with Roxy Supercubes. Alrighty, so welcome back to Unpackaged Goods. I have a very special guest from the UK today. I have Belle, the founder of Roxy Supercubes. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about your brand and we'll hop into it?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Belle. I'm actually a London-based nutritionist who founded Roxy about 2 years ago now. We've been in retail about 6 months, but we are the first ever functional ice cube.
That's so interesting. So tell me a little bit more about the path from dietitian to functional ice cube. Was this a pattern that you were noticing in your clients that they were just consuming too much ice?
Well, actually, no. The Roxy stemmed from the wellness industry being far too complicated. And, even I as a nutritionist found myself so overwhelmed by wellness shots, adding powders, tinctures to my water throughout the day, taking pills. My cupboards were literally bursting at the seams. So I was also adding a lot of ice into my drinks to make them taste good, because a lot of these powders have to be cold to be really palatable. So one day when I was adding ice to my drink, I thought, what if it could just be as easy as dropping an ice cube into water? So I started playing around at home, and that's kind of where Roxy was born from. It started with my immunity cube. I was making them at home. I was stashing them in my freezer, and it was all around this habit stacking thing. Roxy Super Cubes don't just have one nutrient in. We have about 3 different functional ingredients, as well as 6 grams of fiber per cube. So they really are habit stacked, and it took a lot of steps away from my daily wellness routine from me. It just was so much more convenient.
You make a really good point. It has to be habit forming. And I think
Hmm.
that's the problem in CPG is so many people will try a product once, but they don't see where it fits into the habit. And
For
so
sure.
I drink a lot of water throughout the day. And like you said, like a lot of these powders and things that I add, like don't taste very good if there's not ice and if it's not cold.
Hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about like the wellness stack of cubes that you've created.
Yeah.
You said there are a
Yeah.
few different ones, maybe different ingredients that target different symptoms or different types of
Yeah.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. So we launched with four SKUs. We have Hydration Cube, which is full of electrolytes, magnesium, potassium. We also have our Immunity Cube, which is 200% of your vitamin C, and zinc. We have our Glow Cube, which is very hair, skin, and nails focused. So that's collagen, vitamin A, biotin. And then last but not least is our Chill Cube, which was actually a really fun take on the viral Sleepy Girl mocktail. So tart cherry, magnesium, L-theanine. But I really wanted to keep them all low sugar. So they're all under 5 grams of natural occurring sugars. And like I mentioned, the fiber, about 94% of Americans don't get enough fiber. So this was something I was really keen on including in the cubes. And we used a blend of two different fibers, which was the least disruptive on the digestive system. Because I think a lot of people avoid functional foods because they can trigger bloating, and digestive discomfort. So that was something else as a consumer myself, I wanted to be really, really clear on.
That's so cool. I've never seen the ice cube format for
Hmm.
taking my different supplements. And so, is there an education hurdle? As you're starting to tell people about like why functional ice cubes, it's kind of like, hey, you're already using ice, so this is something to incorporate, or what are those conversations like?
Yeah, education has been such a big part of the Roxy brand. This is total innovation. It's something totally new. We're creating a new category, not just a new brand. So that has, that's any startup's challenge. We're really trying to educate the consumer that frozen can be better than fresh, and ambient. And I think, consumers are becoming more educated around that. We freeze our cube. We actually hyper freeze our cubes. So it locks in a lot of the nutrition and the flavor compared to things that are sitting on shelves for weeks, months, things like that. So they are a lot more nutrient dense. And the flavor of our cubes, I'm not sure if you've tried them, but the flavor is like nothing else. They are super fresh because they're frozen at such cold temperatures. So from an experience point of view, Roxy really does have a USP, but when it comes to communicating that to the consumer, we've really invested into demos, in-store demos, because I think once the consumer sees it come to life in person, they see how easy it is and they taste the product, that's when they become hooked.
And now, as you look at getting this in front of consumers, right now you're just D2C. You've in some stores like pop-up grocery, I think. What is the retail strategy? Are you trying to maybe get into like hotels, or what? Are there any other sales channels that are particularly interesting to you?
Yeah, we're actually not D2C. We've never been D2C. We
I realize that.
launched, yeah, from the moment I kind of kicked off with the brand. 18 months later, we went on shelf into the Minneapolis market, into 30 London Biley stores, which was a really good test market for us for 2 months. And then 2 months later, we launched nationwide with Sprouts and Wegmans. So it was a really nice transition to have that time. But I think there's pros and cons because I think if you are D2C, it's such a good learning time. You can get that real tangible feedback. Because we went straight through retail, didn't get that kind of quick feedback that I was just desperate to have. So we're constantly in our DMs. We are reaching out to consumers when we're tagged in anything, when people spot us. I want to know everything. So I'm trying to like get as much information as I can. And then when it comes to demos, obviously I'm based in London, but I do travel to and from the US, but I can't be at every demo in every store. And with Sprouts in the first 3 months, we invested in 90 demos, across stores. And that was challenging for me as a founder because I want to know everything. I want to be really hands-on. This is my baby. And you've got to let go of a little bit of that control, and really put your trust into other people. And it worked out really nicely. We were having weekly updates, getting lots of feedback, from the guys that were doing the demos for us. And yeah, just staying really on top of it. But demos have been great.
That's what I hear for a lot of founders, just getting out in the wild and seeing
Hmm.
those reactions, getting feedback in real time. That's the most important thing as you grow. So you're in some pretty big retailers. What has been like launching in the Midwest, so like town and state like Minneapolis. Like, how is that different from trying to get into like the coastal towns for you?
Yeah, I think, well, our CEO, he's actually based in Minneapolis. So that was a really nice kind of home market to launch in. And I think the fact it was 30 stores is big, but it's not too big. You know, you can control it, which is really nice. So we have people on the ground. I was out there at the start doing loads of events, popping up where our consumers hang out. So Roxy are really big on that. We do loads of Roxy pop-ups. We're at the workout studios, the health and wellness events. We want to be seen where our rock stars, we call them, are, you know, hanging out in the mornings or on their weekends. So that was really key at the start with the Minneapolis market. But then obviously when you're launching into a lot more stores overnight, like Sprouts, it's hard to be seen everywhere at once. So, yeah, it was a big transition. We're currently building out a team of brand ambassadors for Roxy, which is going to be a gradual process, but we want to get, a team on board who feel really passionate about the brand, who are, you know, our consumer. We're targeting Gen Zs. That we want them to be our consumer. We want them to have fun with it and really be able to shout about the product, to our community.
And so tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Have you always lived in the UK?
Yeah, I was born, in the UK and the south coast of England, and I've always lived here. I have always had a passion for health and wellness, although I studied fashion. I worked in the fashion industry for 5 years, which I think really was where my love for branding and consumer retail kind of really kicked off. But my real passion, like I said, is health and wellness. So when I went back to study to become a nutritionist, I used to love, and I still do, love coming over to the US and seeing what's going on in your CPG world. A lot of the trends are starting over there. I'd come back with so much inspiration. So yeah, it really did kind of like trigger the entrepreneur in me to really start Roxy.
I love it. And yeah, the London and UK CPG scene is very different. I've spent a good amount of time over in London for work over the years, and
Yeah.
my sister studied there. And so
Oh, really?
I love spending time there. And so tell me about some products in the UK that you probably won't find in the US that you really love.
It's a really good question because I think a lot of these trends start in the US and then they trickle over to us here. But there are things happening here in the UK, you know, we've got some really interesting things when it comes to, ingredient standpoints. I think we're known for having a lot more of like a clean label and being able to trace and track where our dairy comes from and things like that. In terms of, I guess it does come under the wellness, umbrella. There are some really cool brands like I Am, which is born from London, which is a longevity based skincare brand. There's Kodo, which is home fragrance, but it's very clean. And, you know, that it's all very focused on wellness and small batch. So yeah, there are things happening, but I think a lot of people in the UK would always look at the US for trends. And I visited my first Expo West 3 years ago. And I had never seen anything like it. And I think for anyone looking to start a brand, going to Expo is just a no-brainer. It's a must because you do leave and your brain feels so full with so many crazy ideas and concepts.
Yeah, the summer fancy food show is going on
Yeah,
the last
right
couple
now.
days here in New York. I've been the last 2 days, and I'm planning on going then here after this. And it's
Fun.
been wild to see all of the innovation. I think really the international inspiration. 70% of the show is really international, and so seeing
Wow,
all of the
really?
different and seeing
Yeah.
all the different countries and the suppliers and the distributors and what they're trying to bring over to the States, it's fascinating. So
I
I
think
think that
it's
is really good advice.
Yeah, I think it's always a dream, you know, if you can crack the US market, it's a big job. It's not easily done, but it's the opportunity in the US is an amazing opportunity. Is there anything you've seen from the UK over at the Fancy Food Show that's caught your eye?
I'm gonna have to go back to the UK section. There's literally they section them by countries, and so you can find countries from all over the world. But uh, I think there were a lot of teas. I went to the Harney and Sons. They had a huge tea exhibit, and they
Mm-hmm.
had my mom loves their teas, and so they had their like new holiday tea set, and so
So
I took
fun.
a
I love
picture. I
tea.
was yeah,
Yeah.
it was like my mom, my aunt, they like so many Harney's tea boxes around their houses. So I'm like, all right. I know what you're getting for Christmas.
Yeah, you're
So
like, this is the perfect gift. The other thing I think is, I used to I used to take a suitcase over with me to the US and fill it with things from Whole Foods and Air One, etc., and hoard it back. But we have something called health.com now in the UK. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
I have seen it or I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, it's been great because we can get a lot of the US brands, things like Purely Elizabeth granola, things like this, that we can now get them in the UK, which is pretty game changing.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, Purely Elizabeth was there yesterday. They were debuting their new protein granola.
Oh, I love the protein granola. It's very good. I've
Yeah,
tried it. Yeah.
that's yeah, it is. It's there was a lot of fun stuff. I think today, like a lot of the brands will just be giving away stuff because they don't want to take it all back with them.
Yeah,
And so
always the final day, right? You better take a big tote bag and yeah, you can get all the samples. So much fun.
that's right. So you're in the frozen section, which is
Hmm.
really having a resurgence. I would say that it's really, there have been a lot of cool brands that have been innovating in the frozen aisle. But that comes with that is the challenges of shipping frozen, the challenges of having a product that, maybe doesn't do well in hot temperatures. And so does the summer months maybe affect your business, or do you try to target regions that maybe don't impact it or aren't as temperature
Yeah,
troubling?
it's a good question. I think, do you know, I think people always over worry about frozen and the supply chain side of things. I think we haven't had any, touch wood, major problems with the supply chain. And I think frozen is having a bit of a surge right now. I was talking about this the other day. I think brands like True Fruit and Fruit Riot have really injected a freshness into the frozen aisle. Frozen used to be, quite a stale aisle of the supermarket. It was known for the frozen pizzas and things hadn't changed in years and you never really would go down the aisle. But now, like I said, about the consumers becoming far more educated around frozen being a lot more nutritious, and frozen being fun. So yeah, True Fruit and Fruit Riot were great, over the past 4 or 5 years. That's really injected the Gen Z walking down that frozen aisle. But I think there is more to come with frozen. I think we're only just at the start. We're the first functional frozen brand. And that in itself was confusing when we were pitching to retailers. Every retailer asks, where do you guys sit in the frozen set? And right now we sit with frozen fruit. So we sit with the smoothie cubes, we sit with the smoothie bowls, and there is this wellness set happening in frozen, but I think it's going to take time. But yeah, back to your question on supply chain, we've found that okay. And through the summer months, there's naturally a spike in sales, and because we're an ice cube, so summer is a bit of a no-brainer for that. Yeah, we've been okay on the distribution side.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think you're right that a lot of people kind of freak out about frozen when there's not a whole lot. It still works, That's why there's so many frozen brands.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's such a connection with the health and wellness space, fitness. Here in the States, we've seen a huge boom in Pilates studios, cold plunges, saunas, these wellness places like Bath House. You mentioned a little bit, those are, your clientele, the Gen Zs. Are there any fitness brands that you really like that are kind of dream collabs or partnerships?
Yeah, that's a very good question too. I think, yes, there's a few brands that we have up our sleeve that we would love to collaborate with. I think with Roxy, it works really well with activewear and workouts and anything health and wellness, to be honest with you. But I think it's probably a pretty typical answer, but things like Vuri, Aloe, they're very kind of like, I love the branding. It's very clean. It's very sporty. And when it came to developing the Roxy brand, I wanted it to be that, I didn't want it to be too female focused. I wanted it to feel a little bit sporty, a little bit cool girl. The colors, they're fun. It really does pop on the shelf of the freezer. So I think, yeah, kind of echoing that with the fitness brands that are happening. And yeah, there's a lot that we have on our list that we would love to collab with.
Yeah, I could see a Sporty and Rich collab.
Yeah, sporty and rich would be very cool.
Seems very,
Yeah.
very on brand and would be cool. So
And the fact we have 4 different cubes, I think they fit into 4 different occasions. So we're not just, we don't just have electrolytes. I love the fact that our chill cube can really work with like nightwear, or face masks, things like that. So there's like so many different ways to use the cubes. And interestingly, they're all, from a sales point of view, they're all selling at similar rate of sale. We thought there could be one that was an obvious leader, but yeah, it's been pretty sustainable in terms of all 4 of them, which is interesting.
that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like do they come in packets of all four of them together, or do you sell them like separately for the different wellness stacks?
We sell them. So yeah, we don't do a multi-pack. They're sold as just per SKU. So your hydration, your immunity, your glow, or your chill. And in terms of what you can drop your Roxy into, they can be consumed in so many different ways. You know, people think obviously water with the water bottle movement that's happening, you know, that you can chuck it in your Stanley cup and you're good to go. But alternatively, they are incredible in sparkling water. In my opinion, they're better than any healthy soda on the market. And they also really work well in alcohol and mocktails. And with the non-alcoholic movement, there's a really interesting gap happening there.
Yeah, I haven't drank in coming up on 3 years. And so
Oh,
exploring
congrats.
all of thank you, coming up, exploring all the functional beverages in the NA space and things to add. And I'll have to add some ice cubes to some fun drinks. That's
Yeah,
a good
try
idea.
the chill cube is a good one. Or
I
even
will.
for the people that do drink, adding a hydration cube to your tequila soda or your vodka soda. You can get your electrolytes in whilst you drink, get your fiber in. They're all low sugar, and they're all pretty low calories. So it's a really healthy hack.
And it's really smart that you added fiber because
Hmm.
that's like a conversation that's starting to happen. Protein is still dominating. I think it's
Yeah.
probably a good, maybe probably intentional that you didn't put protein in. I think you probably didn't want it to be viewed as a protein product, is probably my assumption. But I don't know. Is there any reason maybe behind not putting protein?
We are developing, we have 4 SKUs for 4 different functions. We've got a new cube launching next year, which isn't a protein cube, but it's something that's very exciting. It's not been done in frozen before. It's probably my favorite cube yet when it comes to taste. So that will be launching next year. But we are also working on another line of Roxy, something in the freezer. It's not a super cube, still frozen, still functional. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
I will see, and I
Yeah.
think you hint at what a lot of the very smart brands do is they're not just creating one product line, they're creating a platform.
Hmm.
And it sounds like that's where the thought process is behind Roxy is that you can create a wellness platform, not and just start with the cubes and then really expand beyond that.
That's the thing is formats really haven't evolved for years. Wellness is blowing up in every part of the store. You look at ambient, fresh, any part of the store when you go to it, there's wellness products apart from frozen. And like I said, it's starting to emerge, but not really in functional. So yeah, I really think there's more to happen. I think we don't just want to be known for just one SKU or one thing. We want Roxy to take over the freezer and create an entire new category.
I love it. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see all the different functional applications that, and all the sleepy corners of the frozen section that haven't been
Hmm.
touched and that need a little love. So
And yeah, and just to add to that quickly, the experience of Roxy, it is an experience. So when you drop that cube in, the color diffuses, the taste, like I said, is like nothing else. And it really is something that's TikTok worthy. It's colorful. It's really exciting and it is different. It's fresh. It's really fresh and different. So I think that in that respect, we do have, we found a white space.
it really sounds like it. And you kind of stole the answer to my next question. But if there's anything else that you'd like to convey about the brand that you haven't yet, anything else for people who aren't familiar with Roxy that you would love for them to know?
Yeah, well, follow us on Instagram. We're super social and we're building our community. We love popping up, like I said, at any health and wellness events, workout studios. So we're always happy to come along and pop up our Roxy stand. And in addition to that, if you think you could be a brand ambassador for Roxy, we'd love to also hear from you because we are growing our little family of rock stars.
I love it. And can I find it in the Wegmans here in Brooklyn or in New York? Is it in New York, Wegmans?
We Last time I was there, no, we weren't in the one in the city center, which was such a shame. But we are hopefully launching on shelf soon in those ones in the city. So definitely go check it out and let me know if you find it. But yes, pop up
Okay.
grocer also.
Okay. So I will be in the city today, obviously, for the show. And so I will make a special trip to pop up to get the cubes so I can
Yay!
try them.
And
So
let me know
uh,
which one you go for and how you consume it.
I
I love
will,
hearing those
because
details.
I'll tag you and send a picture and
Yes,
stuff
yeah,
because
please do. Love
I'm
that.
so excited. Well, this was so lovely.
Yeah.
I'll stop hit record, and then basically what'll happen is it'll. Hardy, that's it. Great interview. Thank you so much. If you've made it this far, it means the world to me. If you haven't yet, please rate and review us 5 stars. Takes 2 seconds. Follow us on socials. Subscribe to our newsletter. And yeah, we'll see you next week. We out.